Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Babbling review show with myself, Sloth, and Mike. That's another 3 points. How are we feeling?
Yeah, we're back to being massive. We're never going to get beaten again, and we're on for our title charge.
Lovely stuff.
Cool. I mean, you couldn't have put it better any other way, I don't think. But yeah, I mean, interesting match. We'll go through it through the stages as it kind of evolved. But let's just start from the very beginning with the lineups, which we could put up here. Any surprises? There was one change from the previous Premier League match against Wolves, which was Pablo Fornals in for Cornet. Other than that, it was the same back four we saw in that game with Kehrer at right back, Rice and Souček in midfield, and Scamacca and Paquetta, their little link-up, staying in the Premier League as well. So was there any surprises from this?
Not for me. We covered this, didn't we, as well? I think we said at the time that the only thing that we saw being a change was obviously Cornet from the last Premier League game. And we did say that we expected Kehrer to start. So for me, it wasn't really much of a surprise. Obviously, there's a couple of things that we would probably change, but ultimately, I think that is Moyes' preferred 11 at this point.
Yeah. I think that's pretty much bang on, isn't it? Really, with what we've got and how we set up in Europe. You know, Antonio was leading the line on Thursday, so it was quite obvious that Scamacca was now Moyes' first choice pick. But I guess playing a 4-2-3-1 with Kehrer at right back, we saw it kind of work pretty well against Wolves. What did you guys make of Kehrer's kind of early performances before we talk about the Fulham goal? Because I think in the first half, there were a few people saying that, you know, he was getting caught out a little bit, looked a little bit rash. But what do you guys think of it?
I think it is kind of something that we mentioned, that he doesn't go half-heartedly into things, he commits, and it does kind of catch him out. But I think while he's new, it's that kind of, it feels like he's trying to impress. And, you know, I'm not too bothered about it. He was probably at fault for something that I think, you know, we need to work on as a side, which is, I said that I think we almost need to concede, or we let teams have big chances against us early on. And that's the catalyst for us to wake up. And I think down that right-hand side, he did look a bit, he did look rash, like he could get caught out. But I think that will be something that develops with the more that he plays. And let's not forget that right back isn't his favoured position. It's one that he's happy to play, but it's not his favourite position. And so I do kind of think it's a little bit harsh to be slating him as much as some people are. But I can also understand it, because things like that will cost you against clinical sides. And, you know, we were lucky it didn't.
Yeah, I think another way to look at it as well is that what stands out is, you know, when we say he's rash, because it stands out looking rash when you've got a defender trying to be proactive, when the rest of your team is essentially looking to drop, get behind the ball, not press. What they're saying is a press, and they're not pressing. They're literally moving positions, moving in a position to say, maybe you're not going to pass down into this lane. There's no pressing, there's no intensity. So it's when one person breaks out of that mold and tries to attack to aggressively win the ball, if they're caught out, then ultimately, again, you're going to be, that looks poor, because then you've not got the player coming rushing across to smash into a player as they beat them. So I do think defensively, we're not set up in how he is also used to playing. We also have to acknowledge that we're very passive, and he's come from a PSG team, which are used to, if we lose the ball, we get that ball quickly. We engage the opposition, and we will look to win that ball at every opportunity. Under Moyes, it's not the same. And I think that passiveness also puts us into, it leads us to be quite inconsistent, and also leads us to be essentially exposed, because we allow teams to dictate. And that's what what Fulham did in the early 10 minutes or so. They dictated, because what did we do? What did we do to pressure them? Nothing. We just sat behind the ball. Occasional player would go in. There's one piece. Obviously, he's going slightly off topic of Kera, but there was one point where Rice absolutely burst forward out of midfield to put a press on. No one went.
Yeah.
And then after the player turned and Rice got close, all of a sudden the press went. But by that stage, the opportunity to do that press had pretty much gone. But it's just the fact that it was so disjointed. It was so passive. And this is a constant theme we talk about in every game. Passive defending. And that's why we go 1-0 down and then why we all of a sudden play aggressive, because we've been passive. And then all of a sudden we have to switch. And in some games, by the time we've switched, the game's gone. Like, we should have been gone. We should have been 2-0 down within the first 15, 20 minutes. James is one off the crossbar. I'm not even going to talk about Fabianski's attempts for the first one. But again,
well, let's talk about the first one before we get through it, because there's a lot to go through anyway. But 5 minutes in, it was a very slow start, which we mentioned in the preview. We didn't want to see, and we've seen it time and time again, where we don't start and we go a goal down early on, and it's exactly what happened. Pereira went through. We lost the ball in midfield. He kind of just ran through, kind of like he was going nowhere. Zuma kind of half lazily came across, kind of staggered across. I think expecting him to miss if he was to take a shot on his left. But, fair play. It was a very good finish, but maybe one Fabianski should have done better.
Yeah.
But there were a few people in that build-up to that goal where people were kind of looking, that could be their fault. Who did you guys pin that down to as kind of the problem?
I mean, for me, it's 100% Zuma. I don't mean that. Let's face it, he hit it hard, but a top-level goalie, you would be expecting to kind of deal with that, or at least get a hand to it. And he just kind of didn't even do anything, really. He did the classic, oh, it's gone past me pose. But Zuma doesn't sprint. That's the long and short of it in my eyes. I got kind of made this point and got told it was a bit harsh. But for me, he tries to shepherd him, but it's a lazy attempt at shepherding. So that is him culpable. He doesn't sprint across. If he sprints across, he at least gets close to the man and doesn't give him as much room to shoot. So yeah, for me, it is Zuma's fault. It was lackadaisical and half-hearted at best, in my opinion.
What frustrated me is we spoke about it on the review preview show, but we said with Fulham are at their most dangerous is in transition. They're very good in transition. And how did we concede? And how did they look good in transition? And how did we allow that? By being passive and allowing gaps and allowing them to play for us. Now, yes, Zuma should have gone in across. But what I think he also did, I think Zuma gambled on that Pereira was going to play across goal. He essentially went, I'm going to trust my goalkeeper to, if he has a shot, he's going to save it. And you could tell that by his reaction where he had his arms out, like, how have you let that in? Like, it was a great shot from Pereira, but when you look at how far away Fabianski was, his hands were from that, you kind of look at it and go, you're meant to be real class goalkeeper. You would expect a class goalkeeper, as Slav said, to get a hand to it. Maybe not save it, but have a hand at least to it. And whilst it was a good shot to be beat at that angle, it does make you question certain aspects of the goalkeeper. Zuma is culpable completely as well in the whole situation. And I think he gambled and he got that gamble wrong.
Yeah.
But after that, I think Zuma definitely got his head straight after that one because he was pretty imperious after that. But it was one of those goals where you look at and go, this is something that you should have been aware of what they were going to do. And we took so long to understand we need to stand on Pereira and get someone close to him. And we just allowed them to dictate, allow Pereira to roam where he wanted. And he was getting them ticking. And obviously then James, with his shot, nearly made it 2-0 as well. We was nearly out of sight within about 20 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, we see it so many times. Whenever at home against a team we expect to beat, we just don't start. We kind of just expect to turn up and they're not really going to pose any threat and we'll play our football and get the first goal and that'll be kind of game over. But it's never, ever like that. No team in the Premier League is going to let you do that. And, that goal, I agree, is both Zuma and Fabianski. I don't know what Fabianski was doing when he was trying to save it. I don't know why he didn't even need to dive the way he did. But Zuma, the way he shuffled across, I mean, we've seen it before that he can be quite lazy when it comes to that kind of thing. He can look that way at least, and he won't necessarily sprint to get across and show him down the side. It's more of like a Van Dijk kind of thing where he'll, like what you said, Mike, trust his goalie behind him. But yeah, it was really lazy. It just looked like first 5 minutes weren't at it at all, and we got punished. And yeah, like you said, Mike, we could have been 2-0 down easily, just letting them play through us. I think it was about 5 or 10 minutes later, Dan James had a nice shot and, came off the crossbar. Fabianski was beat. And then we started to wake up a little bit because the fans were getting very disgruntled, and we started to play a few nice passes. Paquetta being the one kind of the string of that, playing a nice through ball over the top to Scamacca, and he had a shot that went that was saved nicely from Leno. He also had another header which was saved from Leno, and then it took us to the equaliser, which was the penalty from Bowen. So very controversial again. Probably, I mean, every goal was controversial for us, but this penalty in particular was a really strange one to watch because I wasn't actually at the game, but he was telling Pereira basically with Dawson not to just not persist with what he was doing. He was doing that zonal thing of just standing there, and Dawson was just saying, he's holding me. Look, ref, look what he's going to do. Whistle blows, does exactly the same thing, gets clattered down between two players and gives a penalty. What did you guys think of it? Because there's going to be bias from West Ham fans and Fulham fans, but I know what my opinion of it was, and I think yours might be different, Mike.
Yeah, so what I was thinking, I sit that end, so I was actually watching the whole thing. So we first saw the first incident, and at that point, the ball's not in play. He's not going to give a penalty. He's just going to do the typical coming together of players. So at that point, we're like, well, the ref's just going to watch this. And I'd be annoyed if I was Fulham, because what Dawson did was the dark arts of football, which as an opposing fan, you say is almost borderline to cheat in some ways. But when you're watching your own player, it's smart forward play, because the moment he went down, he knew the ref looked. He then ran straight into Pereira, straight directly off, and engaged first contact to then make that point of ref, see, look, I'm trying to move, and he keeps obstructing me. Pereira didn't help himself, but he did that. After it, then he went again, he got hit. So by that point, a penalty was coming. If there was any other contact and he went down, a penalty was coming at that point, because he'd already been warned once. There's two other very quick succession incidents where he just basically tried to impede Dawson. And ultimately what Pereira had to do, and it goes against all logic, he had to give Dawson a free run. Dawson kind of knew that, and Dawson kind of slightly clotheslined him because he initiated that third contact, which resulted in a penalty. But again, Pereira put his arms up. If Pereira just went down and held his face and didn't put his arms out, because he did, he put his arms out, he reacted, and he slightly pulled at him. So ultimately, whilst Dawson initiated the contact, it was a bit of the dark arts of football, but we see Harry Kane do that all the time, and it's getting called brilliant offensive play. So whilst it's not necessarily in the, let's say, in the common interest of football, it's because it's not necessarily fair play. Well, it was very smart from Dawson, because he initiated gamesmanship.
That's what it is at the end of the day.
That's it, yeah. It's not necessarily the gamesmanship of it, but he initiated the contact, he initiated the foul, and we got what was coming. And ultimately, at the end of the day, regardless of whether it's harsh or Dawson initiated the foul, it was stupid play from Pereira. And as we've always said, even on our own Twitter accounts before, don't leave a referee to make a decision. And what did he do? He left the referee to make a decision. And his decision was, I've had enough of watching you do it. I'm punishing you. Simple as that. It's
the laws of the game are very clear. You can't grab an opponent's shirt, and things like that will be punished. They fall under a foul. They fall under the category of a foul, the definition of a foul. And the ref says to him time and time again, I'm going to pick you up on that, and I will give a pen. Like, whether we think it's soft, I think it is a bit soft. Yes. However, if Virgil van Dijk does that, every commentator is going, great play. If it doesn't matter that he's a 6'3" unit. It doesn't matter that it's Craig Dawson. Pereira's little statement where he goes, he's a 90-kilogram.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm like 78 or something.
Quite frankly, it's pathetic. And him saying he went down like a girl. It's 2022. You're an ingrate. Like, you know full well what you're doing. You know full well that if you get in front of him, you're impeding him. Now, this isn't WWE. He didn't clothesline him and take him out. His arm comes across because Pereira initiates the contact. So this whole thing of Twitter going, his arm has come across and it's clotheslined him. Like, grow up. You are playing a contact sport and you have freeze framed a moment from the contact sport. I get that it's against you. I get that it's against you and it's not very nice. But if you're warned 3 times and you still do it, there's no arguing against it. But
he deserved it, didn't it? He deserved that.
For once, I've seen a referee do something that a referee should do, and people are going, "Why has he done that?" It's like because he's actually actually enforcing the laws of the game.
He's had 2 to 3 other incidents where he could have pulled that up for a penalty. It's as simple as that, and he just turned around and basically lost his patience and went, "That's it. You pulled him down. You're not listening. Done. That's it. You're getting punished."
If Pereira really wanted to do something, what he should have done was gone, "Guys, I've been warned twice. Get someone else here, and I'll swap with you." Sorted, because then it removes all that kind of implication of he's done it twice. He knows what he's doing the 3rd time. But he did.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, a foul is a foul, regardless of how soft it is. You know, twice he was shown by the ref to not do something that was going to be a foul. He was like, "Just don't do it, or you're just going to give away a penalty." Still did it, and it's just stupid. Like, it's just so stupid. I'd be so annoyed if I was a Fulham fan in that situation because I could see it coming. You could see it brewing, and if you're Dawson in that,
if I was one of the Fulham players as well, because it's like at that point they were in control. Really, there was a couple of chances were going, our way. We were getting better, but at that point, our shots had been saved. Leno had been performing quite well, and they'd been defensively. They'd been kind of getting some last-ditch kind of tackles or kind of blocks in. So at that point, you would argue they probably felt fairly comfortable.
Definitely.
And then just idiocy, really. It's just idiocy from one player, regardless of whether, as we've said, you think it's an outright foul or you think it's harsh. The truth of the matter is he done it on such multiple times, and he knew the ref was watching him, and he continued. It's just, you don't allow a referee to make a decision. And VAR were never going to say no, because, again, the problem is, like, they're going, "Oh, well, that's a wrong decision." But was it clear and obvious? No, not in real-time play.
It wasn't even an error, though. Like, it's a foul. Like, it's not an error. It's the correct thing.
Exactly. And that's it. So if you slow it down frame by frame, then you can probably pick out bits and go, well, that contact there is probably he's initiated that, or maybe that's a foul from him to him. It's like, but no, in real time, when you watch it and you review that back, you can't say that's a clear and obvious error. Because it looks a foul, and there is a foul in there. I'm sorry, but there's 2 or 3 fouls in that whole sequence leading up to even what ultimately came to penalty. So it's a pen. It's a goal. We scored. Brilliant penalty.
The irony is I'm sat here saying everyone's an expert on a football podcast about a game. But at the end of the day, I passed my ref's exam. It was a few years ago, but I passed my ref's exam. And yet, Danny bloody Murphy on the TV sat there going, "Well, it's like, learn the laws of the game. You played the game. The least you can do is sit there and learn the laws."
Oh yeah, exactly. If it was the other way round and it was him initiating that, he would be called. If he was Craig Dawson, he'd be outright 100%. I was fouled. Well, Stonewall. So and also we've got to remember, he did play for Fulham. He has an affinity with Fulham. So we've got to take what he said with a massive punch of salt in that regard as well.
Massive salt?
Punch of salt.
Is that what Craig Dawson did? That's what
No, that was more the forearm.
Well, we did get the pen, and Bowen did sort it away. I think there was a few people kind of interested to see who would take it, because obviously Rice had taken the one against Forest and missed, and there wasn't really a standout penalty taker on the pitch that we've had as an established person at West Ham. That Scamacca can probably take a penalty of how he strikes a ball. Paquetta probably the same with his technique, but we didn't really have a designated penalty taker. So I think Bowen thought, I've scored in the Europa Conference League and scoring a pen. I fancy this one, and he took it really confidently. Not someone that was probably short of confidence going into the game, bar his goal last week against Wolves. But yeah, really nice penalty. 1-1, got us back in the game, and from then on, did you think it was a matter of time before the second goal came? Because there was a period in the second half, before we get into the next goal, where it kind of entered a bit of a lull. Even the commentary said it was kind of getting a bit scrappy, and it was getting to a point where you're thinking, Moyes, we need to make a change here. We need to maybe bring on a Ben Rama or someone else, or like a Lanzini to kind of drop deep and get the ball. But before that goal happened, did you guys, think we would go on to win it?
I felt there was a goal in it for us, based on the opportunities we created in the first half and the way that, there's been comments made that, Scamacca needs to improve his finishing a bit more, which I find I kind of found it slightly kind of amusing, because it's like, well, one, he does not concern himself with a miss, because as he says, he likes to shoot a lot. He basically plays a lot of averages game. He will take shot after shot. He doesn't care, because it's the next one's coming. I'll just take the next one. That's his mindset. That's what proper strikers are. I've missed that one, on to the next. And the opportunities that he did miss, the shot that went just wide was quite from it's an awkward angle, really, in terms of getting it crossed and into bottom corner. And it was a good shot he did. The other two were good saves from Leno, regardless of what it is. And also, the header where everyone's saying, he should put it to the far right-hand side. Actually, what he was doing was very smart to play it to the left, because the goalkeeper is running across to that side of the goal to cover, because it's empty. It just happened that had it probably bounced, and it would have then gone in. But because it went down and Leno was already there, he kind of managed to get the block, and Bowen was unlucky. But I always felt we'd get another chance. And I did feel that Scamacca probably was going to take one. He's not going to constantly miss in games. He's always going to take a chance if given one. And when it did come, he took it with aplomb, didn't he?
I mean, yeah, let's talk about that second goal that put us 2-1 up, because, again, more controversy for us to discuss. But there were two instances, and it was such a weird goal. Mike, I don't know what it was like in the stadium, but I didn't celebrate. I thought from Scamacca's reaction, it was offside or something, or a handball. It looked like either of those two had happened, and then nothing happened. Okay, It's been maybe a goal, but VAR, and then what was it like being in the stadium before we get into the actual?
Like people had Tourette's. It's just that involuntary spasm of No, it was just literally like that. It just didn't know what to expect, because his reaction was so no, and then we're just like, as soon as it went in, and the way his reaction turned around to my dad and went, they're going to look at this we're offside.
Yeah,
and then
that is what they checked to start with, was the offside. Was being played on from a defender slightly behind the line. So that was not debatable. He's onside. The one that is debatable that they were getting the slow-mo cameras out for and replaying was the handball incident, where the ball kind of bounces up and then bounces down, but there's two instances. So there's the first one, whether it brushes his arm on the way down, and then there's the second instance where the ball bounces and comes back up to him before he chips Leno, where maybe it hit his arm as well. So what did you guys think of it?
Personally, again, this is where I think the rules are a bit vague, right? Because it's meant to be clear and obvious. So unless VAR is actually categorically checking every single goal, after the actual offside, well, then there's no clear and obvious thing in there, right? Because if the referees awarded it and the lino has said it's onside, and we've then classified that it's not offside, where's the clear and obvious error in which to then review for a handball? It looks like actually we're looking to find reasons to not give a goal. So Rashford was a prime example where his goal was chalked off when actually that should have gone. If you look at it and you go really slow-mo, the way his hand slightly moves, you could say, yes, it brushed his hands. But again, it's so minute that I just don't think it impacted on the goal at all. And in all honesty, I don't care. Like, after what happened with Chelsea, I don't care if that one's controversial. Quite frankly, as far as I'm concerned, that's what we got back from the Chelsea game, where we got screwed out of a point. So
Peter Jones says it here. I mean, no evidence, no handball, and it was very clear from the VAR. You know, you could not tell really. It might have maybe slightly brushed, but even then, you can't even tell from watching those replays about 10, 15
it's
times.
Not conclusive
So
evidence, is it? No, if you can't conclusively do it, and if you've got to sit there and watch it for about 2-3 minutes, because that was the thing, we were all sitting going, they're reviewing this for far too long. They're not going to give it now because it was taking so long.
Yeah.
You know, if you got to sit there and watch it 4 or 5 times, then that tells you it's not conclusive, and you can't then say, well, it's a clear and obvious error, because that's what essentially you're saying. So you have to award it. So, you know, they eventually did. Then Scamacca just absolutely lost it and went for it for his celebration, which was brilliant. But the funniest thing about the whole thing is watching, when you see the goal, when you see that celebration, is just looking at Paquetta's face and how confused he is by Scamacca not celebrating the first time round. It's just absolutely brilliant.
Well, controversy aside, let's talk about the actual goal, because it was really nice. You know, Rice played a lovely ball into Paquetta's feet, and you know, we saw it a little bit in the Conference League with his, you know, link-up play with Scamacca with that ball over the top. A really, really nice pass from Paquetta, and you know, he will try those kind of passes, and I think that's what people want to, you know, maybe see more of, not just the industry player that we've seen, but that creative side. And what a ball over the top for Scamacca, and a really good finish. Sloth, what did you make of it?
Well, I very nearly shot myself in the foot. I'll be honest. I was ready to tweet out that basically, if Rice is this dynamic box-to-box forward that everyone keeps telling me he is, and you know, we keep hearing he's almost Yaya Toure-esque, he needs to do more going forward. And of course, what happened? He zipped that great ball into Paquetta and did exactly what I was basically about to tweet. So, you know, I'm very happy to be proven wrong, but I think from a technical point of view that the finish was sublime.
Really good.
Even forgetting about the VAR side of things, which we've established, the law's very clear. It needs to be clear and obvious. It wasn't, therefore you have to give it. The touch to take it down, and to have the audacity to chip him from that kind of range with that
word there as well,
was fantastic. You know, I can't think of a player since Payet that we've had who I think, yeah, he'd be able to do that. Like, you know, 9 times out of 10, that's a possibility. And the finish, he just made it look so easy. It's the kind of forward that we have been really crying out for seasons now, and to have the audacity and the confidence in yourself to do that, I think is massive.
Yeah, especially after you've missed those other opportunities in the game as well. Lesser players would have gone, I am just going to thrash this. You know, and no, he just took the time, seemed so composed, didn't care, just like, just going to dink it over. I think like Tony Gale on I think like the US kind of commentary was trying to suggest that, he only did that finish because he was off, because he thought he was offside. It's like, you know what? Even if he did only do that finish because he thought that, the fact that he still put that away, thinking I might be offside, but you know what? I'm just going to do it. Because had that not been the case, he would have got absolutely lambasted for missing by doing that. The fact you know what? I'm doing it.
I mean, Tony Gale is about as exciting as a race between two snails. Anyway. So I'm not I had the USNBC going. That's how I watch a lot of the West games when I can't go. And just half the waffle he was coming out with, it's awful. But you know, as you say, even if you think you're offside, to do that, you've got to have a bit about you, and you've got to have a ton of ability to actually put it away. Instead of, how many times have we seen it where someone thinks they're offside and they go for the chip and they end up hitting the line?
I'm putting it wide.
I still think his instinct was to chip it. I think he knew Leno was coming, and you know.
No, I mean, you can't. What a lot of people forget is that, I mean, I know the atmosphere has been quite flat lately, but
It was very flat, like, really, really flat.
If you're in that headspace and you're through on goal, you're going to take the shot. It doesn't matter if you hear the whistle, you're still going to try and finish it just in case, because because you're in the motion, you're going to finish or try and finish it off. So I think that's nonsense, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, it did put us 2-1 up, and it kind of eased a bit of that pressure that was kind of on us to get that goal and maybe take the game to Fulham a bit more. And we were allowed to kind of sit in, as Moyes would probably want, and try and look for those counter-attacking opportunities that were inevitably going to come when Fulham pushed on. And, you know, when they brought on Duffy as a striker, I think that kind of showed that there was going to be gaps there to maybe exploit for the last 10, 15 minutes. And we brought in Antonio with 10 minutes left. Sloth, I know you weren't a fan of Antonio's impact last week. Has he gained a bit more respect from you this week after his goal?
Oh, definitely. I think I don't know how long I've said it for, but I've always kind of had this feeling that, you know, if you bring on someone like that, someone with that physicality, that pace, and more often than not, work rate, you're going to cause defenders nightmares. You know, when Traore came on against us the other week, I thought, oh bloody hell, you know, he's just going to run. He's just going to run at players and he will cause us nightmares. And fortunately for us, we just nullified him. But they couldn't cope with Antonio. And I think the third goal itself is all you need to know about what he can do when he comes on, because we'll leave out the handball again, like another one. But
to be honest, that one's clear though. If you look at the rules, it's about the phase of play. Yes, there was a handball in the first instance, but you could would argue, well, actually, Antonio was fouled in the process of taking the ball, and he's tried to protect himself from a leg about to kick him in the chest. So yeah, he handballed it, but then the second phase, after he fluffed the lines after that shot, they had a chance to clear it. They didn't clear it. They got in a muddle. He then tapped it past defender and scored. So quite frankly, the rule is very, very clear.
Yeah.
The first incident wasn't picked up, but again, there was a foul prior to the handball. So in actual fact, it should have been last man red carded anyway in Paulinho. So
last man isn't a law.
Yeah. Double jeopardy now, isn't it? You can get a yellow card instead. Yeah.
I'm going to pick you up on that, Mike, because it's one of my pet hates is when he's the last man. It doesn't matter if he's the last man. He's got a defender over who can cover him. It's nullified, but it's the manner of the challenge as well. It's a dangerous challenge. It's reckless as well at the end of the day.
Yeah, he just absolutely flew in. Both feet are off the floor, and his foot's almost at midriff height. You know, so
it's a dangerous challenge. It's rash and it's out of control. So, you know, Fulham can count themselves very lucky that they didn't see him just sent off for a straight red. And it's the most Antonio goal I've seen in a long time, where, you know, he just absolutely bullies their defenders, cocks it up, gets a second chance, and then buries it. And, you know, but it's his work rate that deserves that. Yeah. And I think it's something that will happen more and more, especially if in January we can get a third striker who could allow us to play two up top or bring on two at some point. I think more and more teams are going to have those shaky instances in the final 15, final 20, where they just can't handle him. They can't handle the impact that he has.
I think it's just a perfect scenario now where we have Scamacca integrated and looking comfortable and firing, which is exactly what we wanted. And then we've got Antonio also here, who's now providing a threat off the bench and can rotate in Europe and Cup. So I think it's just brilliant, because I think Scamacca's now scored 6 goals for us, maybe in all competitions. And, you know, that is what we wanted. You know, we wanted a striker that's going to, you know, score goals, and not just that, you know, his overall play has been really good, but he will score goals. And there's no doubt he's going to get double figures in the Prem this season. You know, him and Antonio are both on 2. So, you know, there's goals being shared, which is really nice. And like you mentioned, Nesloff, it's just absolute nightmare for defenders. If you see Antonio coming on for the last 15, 20 minutes of a game, you just know you're going to be in for a long day. So yeah, I think he took his finish well the second time. The first time I think I expected him to miss, to be honest, but the second part he actually really, composed himself. He took that extra touch and, found the corner, and I think he deserved that goal. And, from his tweet after about VAR, it was like, it's nice to finally get one. And
well, to be fair, he's been done with a couple of those, hasn't it? Where it's kind of hit his arm, mainly because of the challengers put it on to his arm as well, in a couple of instances. But, like I say, he deserved it. And you love a stat, Frankie, especially an XG's a stat. But
go on.
So Scamacca actually, obviously, he's got 6 goals this year.
Yeah.
So his actual XG currently, according to Y-Scout, is 2.88 across all competitions.
Oh, wow.
So again, he's always been an overperformer. But for those saying he needs to improve on his finishing, need to also acknowledge the fact that he should only be on 3 goals this season. If you go by XG alone, should only be on a maximum of 3, and he's got 6. So
I think the top scoring Italian in Europe.
He is. He is.
So,
yeah. So again, it's
I'm loving these stats. Keep them going.
We're coming at you.
We come prepared. But it's the fact that we can say that players need to do better in one area or another, but you also got to acknowledge that it may look like an easy chance, but when you actually break them down statistically, they're actually not always very high value. And actually, if you look at his XG in that game, I think it was 0.66. Yeah. So again, he wasn't, even if you go by the XG from Y-Scout, for instance, as an example, for even the Fulham game, arguably his effort wasn't a guaranteed goal, or he wasn't guaranteed a goal based on the chances that he had. He only had half a goal, essentially, opportunity, or just over half a goal opportunity anyway. So we got to acknowledge that, he has been outperforming so far. And this is him whilst he's still settling into the team, settling into the Premier League. Now, if he gets up to speed, and this is him at a point where he's still thinking he needs to settle in, and Moyes is even saying his fitness has still got some way to go, then I'm sorry, we've got an unbelievable player. Yeah. And let's face it, this is a player that Mbappe is annoyed at PSG for not getting in, because obviously he wanted a player who is similar-ish to Giroud and the impact Giroud had for him with France, and he wanted that at PSG. We got him.
Well, I think as well, like, a lot of people are forgetting that they're talking about the headed chances. Yeah. He's 6'4". Like, the only reason that is a chance in the first place is because he is 6'4" and he's got a good leap on him.
And one of them was a brilliant header. He's just he was on the right-hand side of the goal and he's bulleted it towards the left-hand side. And it was a fantastic save by Leno. You have to acknowledge the goalkeeper's part in it. Leno made a fantastic save in the first one. And the second one, 9 times out of 10, that's going in because the goalkeeper's going to overshoot it because he's running over to cover the side he's expecting Scamacca to go. So 9 times out of 10, he's probably walking away from that game with a brace, potentially even a hat-trick. If that, when you think about, he had 5 chances in the game. 4 of those were on target, and only 1 of them went off target. That's another thing we got to acknowledge. 5 chances, 4 on target, 1 resulted in a goal.
If you also look at that one where he comes near post, he actually creates that himself for his movement. If you look at his movement before that, he darts in, then he darts back out, and then he darts back into the space. And, yes, he probably should have hit it on target, but he's creating those chances for himself. So don't criticize that because, at the end of the day, he still scored and, we won 3-1. So that's the main thing. And I think it was just really nice to see us win a game like that, especially the second half. We were a much better team. And I think after that second goal, it gave us that confidence to start playing a bit more. And before we get onto our man of the match, just a couple of maybe performances we could talk about. The first one being Lucas Paquetta again. First half wasn't maybe as impactful. We had a couple of moments where he played in Scamacca, but I think second half, he was either instructed to, or he just took it upon himself to come deeper and get the ball and start making things happen and start linking up with Rice and finding those spaces where he can impact the game, because he's a very intelligent footballer. And I think from the first half, he kind of understood that he's not going to get those spaces playing that higher up. And he's actually going to be the one to come drop deeper as an 8, which we know is his best position. We know that is where he's going to flourish. And he really took the game by the scruff of the neck, I think, in that second half. And I guess the question for you guys is, Do you think moving forwards we should play? I know we've spoke about it before, but do you think we should be playing a midfield three with Paquetta as the 8 instead of the 10, or would you keep him as the 10?
100%.
It's
I'm going to say it, lads. You know, the player that got linked earlier, who Sloth knows that I absolutely adore, and I said about him way before I talked about Coop Miners, and as a player that I've always wanted. But let's just say, for argument's sake, that it was actually to happen. We are genuinely interested in Locatelli. Locatelli in that midfield three with Rice, Paquetta. I'm telling you, genuinely is next level. That is what a top 6. That's what a top 6 team would have in the Premier League.
Yeah.
There's no ifs, buts, or maybes. That is a top 6 Champions League level.
Top 4. I'd say top 4.
Right. It's just amazing to have that. And that also means that you have in a game, you have 2 players who are naturally good at a 6 and who can naturally be as an 8. I think he's probably better an 8 than Rice, but Rice is world class 6. But the fact that you can have at any point in that game, right, I'm bombing forward. Locatelli, you lock it down in that middle piece. Easy. And then if he gets the ball, he can ping it 60, 70 yards without a problem. And it lands on a dime. It's genuinely, if like that was to happen, that's the midfield three. It's not even a contest of, well, maybe Flynn. No, like it would genuinely be laughable if anyone mentioned Flynn Downs if we got Locatelli. I'm telling you, it is just a game changer of a player if he comes in. Yeah,
but I think one thing that is probably worth highlighting, I think, is that people were slating Souček quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I almost think we're talking about how much Paquetta needs to drop deep, and he does, because he is a box-to-box midfielder. He breaks up the play, and I think there's this fundamental misunderstanding. I don't know if it's in the tactics or where it's coming from, but almost that it needs to be him starting deeper and having that link up with Rice, having the link up with Fornals. And I think what Souček is doing at the moment is he attracts a lot of physical attention away from Paquetta, but he wins a lot of aerial balls. And
he was brilliant defensively again, second half particularly. Absolutely,
he was excellent in the air, and second half he was again fantastic. So look, he's not gonna nutmeg a mermaid, and he's not gonna rainbow flick anyone. But the point is that I've said it before, he is a blunt instrument, but you got to know how to play that instrument. And if you want Paquetta and Rice to pick up the ball, then what I would almost say is put him more advanced, because you know he's going to drop deep. You know he's going to run everywhere on the pitch. Put him in that role, and then let him be the conduit. Let him be more advanced. Let him knock it down towards Rice, Paquetta. And if you don't want to do that, put Fornals there, because Fornals isn't going to challenge in the air. Let's be perfectly clear on that. But he's going to be a nuisance, and he's going to go at your ankles. He's going to be like a little terrier and chase you about. So I think there needs to be this kind of like new statement for what Paquetta is, because he's not what we thought Lanzini was. And he is what people are telling me Lanzini is now. And it's just a fundamental misunderstanding on multiple levels of what this player is. So when we saw his touch map and where he picked up the ball, it was pretty much every area between the two boxes. He is the box.
He started the move that led to the effort that turned into what became the penalty as well. And by coming really deep into our half, holding off a player and then switching it from the right-hand side straight over to Creswell. Yeah. So again, it's that ability to come to drop deep, draw players with him, soak up pressure, and then switch it out to a player into space. It's so understated. It's like there's those things that people turn out, but he doesn't do much sometimes in games, does he, Paquetta? And it's like, then you must be missing the small things that he is doing, or you're putting down actually the defensive work that he does. He maybe not be winning tackles, but it's that pressure that he's doing. It's that dropping into to fill gaps and to stop them from playing through.
And you know what? I'm going to give people a break here because I think I'm going to sound really bloody arrogant, but it's not their fault because they have been sold this image that he's gonna be that number 10 and he's gonna get assists and score goals and flick it past everyone, and that's not what he is. He will flick it past people, but he's not going to do that all the time. He's going to put a shift in, and people are kind of going, well, we're missing. Why is he not doing that? And it's like, because that's not who he is.
And the point you made as well, mate, is that people are lauding, or have lauded Lanzini for doing the role that Paquetta's actually doing. There's a misconception of what Lanzini does is what Paquetta's actually doing, but Paquetta is in some way maybe slightly derided because maybe there's a misunderstanding, as you say, as to what type of player he is, because there's an expectation to him be this flamboyant number 10, being Payet-esque and doing, kind of roulette turns in the middle of the pitch and, rainbow flicking every single player and nutmegging 2 players at once before taking around the goalkeeper, running back to halfway line and then having a shot. He's not going to do that.
I mean, we say that and he's still got 2 assists in his last 2 games. He's still been that creative spark. And I think
for Skamaka as well.
I think because he's Brazilian, because he cost us 50 million, because he wears the number 11 shirt, people expect him to be a bit more further forwards and be a bit more of what we were mentioning there, a bit more Payet-esque, but he won't do that. And he already said that after the game yesterday. He said he's starting to understand his teammates a bit more and starting to link up with the likes of Rice and Skamaka and find an understanding within the team. And that's what we saw in the second half, where he thought, you know what, let me just drop deeper. Let me play as an 8. Let me find those spaces. And it's what you mentioned as well, Sloth. A lot of attention went on to Souček, so it actually allowed Paqueta to do that. So
I think he's learning where the pockets of space are in the Premier League. He's starting just to find out as to where do I seem to get more time to impact. And I think that's what he's starting to learn as to, if I stay in this 10 role, it's actually quite compact. I'm not necessarily getting the space. Like De Bruyne, people call as one of the best number 10s. Plays as an 8, but people call him a 10. He plays as an 8 for Man City, and he is phenomenal. Obviously, again, not same level, but it's that same idea of this.
And I think I just want to say as well, I don't hate Lanzini. I know I keep mentioning it, but it's the perfect example.
It's using what we have in our team to kind of set their benchmark, isn't it? Essentially,
yeah.
Well, I mean, it was a good performance from Paqueta again, and there are a few good performances across the pitch. So let's go on to our man of the match. My one's probably a bit of a surprise to maybe West Ham fans. He wasn't on the poll of the Twitter account yesterday. Aaron Creswell. I thought he was my man of the match. I thought he was really, really solid defensively. Both halves. He was really good actually going forwards. He was starting to overlap a bit more, where that goal came from, where he pinged it out to Paqueta, pinged out to Creswell. He was the one bombing on and, played a nice ball in. But I thought he was really good. I've been advocating for Emerson.
Giving me the eyes here.
He probably doesn't agree, but especially in the second half as well, clearing one off the line, which I don't think Fabianski was getting to be honest. And I just think he had a really good game. And I think a lot of their attacks came from Kera's side. And, when Cabano was getting on the ball, he's causing him all sorts of problems. But on the other side, I don't think he had that many issues. And I think he deserves a bit more credit for what he did.
No, I did. To be fair, I did put out after the game a tweet saying, a little appreciation. I was like, he's not my favourite at all, but I do concede Creswell did actually have a decent game, and the block, not necessarily on the line. It was on the 6-yard line. Let's be fair.
No, that was going in.
I do think Fabianski might have got to it, but again, it was a very good block. He was in a good position. So credit where it's due. Creswell has actually done quite well this season. I wouldn't say he's man of the match, but I do think he had a very good game. And it's refreshing to see him finally doing what a fullback should do in overlap and be involved in the attacking play. I think the signing of Emerson has forced him to actually start doing that, because Emerson will do that every game will just consistently do that, consistently bomb forward. So if he's not doing it, there's a player that will. So he's got to basically up it. And fair play to him, he's done it. Let's face it, Masuaku is never competition. So you're going to up your game, aren't you? Now you've got a bit of competition. I don't know. I think when you look at it, I don't know. I think as a man of the match, I did really like watching Scamacca again. I thought he led the line. Yes, he missed a couple of opportunities, but I think he led the line superbly. Paquetta again was just brilliant. I'm actually going to go for Paquetta because I think he set the tone for us at times and managed to find space. He helped us to take some pressure off. And when he went off the pitch, I was slightly worried because we'd already taken off Scamacca. Then we took off Paquetta. We took off our most comfortable players in possession. So I was slightly concerned. But I think he's getting to a point where Moyes is finally going to give him 90 minutes. Just waiting for the day that he'll get a full 90 minutes. But I just think he's a game changer. And I think in the game, that pass for the Scamacca, just worthy to win any game. Like he just got it and flicked it straight through. It's just that in itself was just perfection. And I'm going to go for Paquetta, I think.
Slough, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have to hold my hands up and say Creswell had a fantastic game. I do think he was very, very good. But for the same reasons that Mike's just said, and I think one of the reasons that maybe he's not the most obvious pick is because even though he got an assist, let's face it wasn't a glamorous performance. It was a fantastic pass through, but he gets the nitty-gritty stuff done and he works hard. So he should be the archetypal West Ham player. He should be the ideal fans' man. And I think for me at the moment, that's what he's given us. So I'm going to say my man of the match was Paquetta, but there were some very, very honourable mentions. Creswell, one of them, Scamacca, the other, and I think a player who, let's be totally honest here and say hasn't had the start to the season that he had last year. Rice in the second half and patches of first half was again fantastic.
Yeah, I did think both Dawson and Zuma after the early stages of the game, they really did kind of up it, and they were really strong. I think those two as well. So I think all in all, they were good performances. It was patchy in terms of as a team performance. I think individually, players were doing their jobs well, but collectively maybe not doing as well as we could have. But I think when we did start connecting, that was promising. And the fact we won a game playing arguably poorly at times and won it 3-1. Yes, there was maybe a heavy hand of luck in there, but I think it's probably one about time we've had a bit of luck. And I also think it's a sign of a good team that when you're still not playing very well, you manage to find some way to do it. And also, let's also talk about Antonio nearly given an absolute welding of a pass in the last minute of the game for Bowen. I think if Antonio would have done that, I think he would have gotten even more of an honourable mention from all of us, because he had a couple of really good opportunities to set someone through, and it was just, again, his final ball failed.
Bowen just had to throw himself at that. He
did, but he needed to be like a foot taller, I think, just to get to it. He was just so close. But it was one of those. I think if it had that gone in, it would have been the cherry on the cake as well. And it just would have been funny just to watch Marco Silva just lose it a little bit more, I think.
God, he really did lose it, didn't he? The whole game.
Yeah, him and Pereira. Also, Pereira was very lucky to even be on the pitch, because after that second goal, he refused to start the game and was really, really, protesting. So by all means, he could have easily been sent off after that second goal. And I think that's why he also got taken off the pitch, because I think the frustration of realising he no longer plays for United and he plays for Fulham means that he can't moan and get the result he wants out of the ref.
I mean, there was a bit of a kind of Jose Mourinho-esque meme when Marco Silva kind of dashed out of his technical into the ref's face about the second goal. But I mean, I don't know what he was moaning at, but you know what? We've been through all that, and we got the win. 3 wins from 3 this week. So 8 days, 9 points. Couldn't be better. Rotated the squad. Everyone looks kind of fit. Maybe Dawson might not be. I saw he was kind of playing on with an injury, it looked like. But I guess we go into the Anderlecht game now, full of confidence again. The games are coming thick and fast, a game every few days. So we're going to have to be on it. It's really important to pick up wins like we did yesterday, even though we weren't playing our best. We got the 3 points. We can move on, and Anderlecht next, and then Southampton away on the Sunday. So yeah, we'll do a preview show for the Anderlecht game, and hopefully we can get that win, and that'll pretty much secure us top spot. Should the other results go our way, and then we can start to play some of the youngsters again, which will be good to see, and give a few more players some opportunities. But yeah, all in all, really good result in the end, and 3 points is 3 points. We're on the same points as Liverpool, so not all that bad. But we move, and hopefully we get another 3 points against Anderlecht, and the likes of Downs will get us a nice game as well. But yeah, that's going to be it for today, guys. Make sure to follow us over on Twitter at Babbling Irons if you haven't already, and make sure to leave a like on this video and subscribe, because it definitely helps with our channel. And yeah, I guess we'll be back on Wednesday for our preview of Anderlecht. And lads, one thing left to say.
Come on, you Irons.